I think the thumbnail was something about what happened to Mike Figueroa. And they were looking at an old video that he did where he was being interviewed by Jimmy Dore, and he seemed to be very critical of Bernie Sanders, and the idea being presented is, what happened to that? Where's that Mike Figueroa that was very critical of Bernie Sanders? And also they were pointing out the fact that he was listening to Jimmy Dore say some pretty aggressive things about the Democrats and the progressives, and he seemed to be okay with it back then. So what happened? Well, I can't speak for Mike Figueroa, but I will specifically address the Jimmy Dore thing. So Mike Figueroa having an interview with Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore saying all this stuff, and he seems to be cool with it. Now he's not cool. A lot of people didn't realize how much of a fraud and phony Jimmy Dore is back then. Now, when I was exposed to Jimmy Dore, I was immediately suspicious, and this is not something because I'm smarter or something like that. I'm just not ideologically captured, shall we say. So I'm not in an ideological bubble. So when I look at things, I'm looking at them more fact-based, right? I first look at Jimmy Dore and I look at what he's saying, and he's making some great critiques of the Democrats. But then when I first saw him and I look at the content and the things that he chooses to talk about and the things he's choosing not to talk about, right away I was kind of like, I don't know about this guy. This guy looks a little fishy. I don't know why someone like Mike Figueroa and other members of the fake progressive squad did not have these sort of suspicions right away. I mean, it's the same thing like how these are people who are former ASC fans or Bernie. I was never a fan of any of these people. I was never a fan of Bernie, never a fan of AOC. I didn't fall for any of the BS, right? So these are people who used to be fans of these cult of personalities, who they get burnt, and all of a sudden, like, they want to tell everybody else, like, oh, you guys are stupid or whatever. But yet they fell for it, right? So Mike Figueroa fell for Jimmy Dore on his bullshit, right? At some point, just like a lot of the fake progressives, the same way they fell for AOC in her games, they fell for Jimmy Dore. But by now, they all see Jimmy Dore for what he is, right? So that's definitely going to be part of what's changed with Mr. Mike Figueroa, who I'm certainly not a fan of. He's definitely part of that fake progressive squad. He does make some good videos, just like RBN makes some good videos as well. I would be much more interested in hearing his critique of the Democrats, and RBN's critique of the Democrats, and definitely Jimmy Dore's critique of the Democrats, than I would hearing any critique of the Democrats from anyone in right-wing media, right? So we can look at these individuals and recognize that they do have value, right? Jimmy Dore is one of the best critics of the Democratic Party. It's unfortunate that he, just like most partisan media, chooses to be so dishonest and a mirror reflection of the very thing that he critiques. Like, Jimmy Dore will make all these videos talking about CNN and MSNBC, how partisan they are, how selective they are in reporting, and then he does the same exact thing. And this is what all of partisan media pretty much does, right? If I'm watching right-wing media, anything negative about Democrats, they're going to talk about it. Stuff negative about Republicans, might not hear anything about it, right? If I'm watching somebody in the blue MAGA squad, anything negative about Democrats, they're going to talk about, right? Anything negative about liberals, they're going to talk about. Right-wing media could be doing some crazy stuff. Right-wing could be doing crazy, GOP doing crazy stuff. Odds are you're not going to hear about it, right? It's like reality is composed of many different, components, right? There's a lot of different things happening, right? You have a fraud Democratic Party, you have a fraud Republican Party. That is reality, right? So those of us being honest and talking about reality, we will be talking about how corrupt the Democrats are and how corrupt the Republicans are. But those of us who are in the business of partisan media, we're only going to focus on what is most profitable. So if I have a bunch of people who are angry with the Democrats, right, it's profitable for me to just keep saying Democrats suck, Democrats suck, Democrats suck, Democrats suck. Republicans suck as well. I may mention it here and there, honorable mention, but focusing on that a lot is not going to be all that profitable. So if I'm in the business of partisan media, I'm going to focus on speaking about what is most profitable, right? So you can watch like TYT, they'll tell you a lot of stuff that's bad that's happening with conservatives and right-wing media, right? But then when you have a black supremacist that goes to that parade and runs over people, all of a sudden it's kind of like, right? Kyle Rittenhouse, right? Kyle Rittenhouse situation. I think them and the majority report still on this BS of just like, oh, Kyle Rittenhouse, the killer, he's this assassin, whatever, right? Even after the Young Turks, you know, in the end had to admit that they were talking about stuff they didn't even know about. They didn't even understand the fundamentals of what happened that night with Kyle Rittenhouse, right? But yet they were on their platform just spreading this narrative that was profitable to them, right? That's what they all do, right? You're watching Fox News, you're going to hear everything about what the Democrats do that suck, not so much about what the Republicans do that suck. You're watching Brian Tyler Cohen, you're going to hear everything about Republicans that suck. You're not going to have, like, that. This is what they all do, right? This is what they all do, because what? This is how the business of media works. This is how CNN gets their engagement up. This is how, these independent media, especially, who take the same mainstream media model and get it more extreme. Let's just get a bubble of people who are against the progressives and against the Democrats, and this every day, look at how the Democrats suck, look at how the Democrats suck, right? And then you get right-wing media every day, oh, the Democrats are socialists and this and that, right? And then you have the Brian Tyler Cohen and the Young Turks and the who else is the next one? I mean, all these like fake progressives every day, the right wing this and the right wing that, and Trump this and Trump that, right? Again, reality is consisting of all these different components, but they each take the part of reality that's most profitable and ignore the rest. Meanwhile, they'll point out the same thing that their competition is doing, right? So you'll have a MSNBC that is, mostly focused on the right, mostly focused on Republicans, who will talk about Fox News being partial and only talking about the left and not talking about the right, right? But that's what MSNBC is doing, right? And they have independent media that will talk about how mainstream media does this. And mainstream media, they're dishonest and they're this and corporate whatever, and even mainstream media. Meanwhile, independent media will take the same business model. I mean, because these people aren't stupid, right? What is the point of getting into media? What's the point of getting into any business? To make money, right? And the legacy media, they've been doing this for decades. Now, they may be dying, but they're still doing it, and they're still making a ton of money doing it, right? So what does independent media folks? So these are not like philanthropists, right? These are just regular people that are looking for opportunities to make profit. They take the legacy business model and they basically modernize it, right? And they take it to a more extreme level. But I think that a better critique, like if you want to really critique Mike Figueroa, you can critique like what I said in the title about how American progressives want eternal poverty, right? This is something that I've been noticing about their rhetoric. They'll talk a lot about everyone should have a right to have a home. There's a lot of demonizing of billionaires, and I make a distinction between when I call out billionaires versus what you get from American progressives, right? They have this rhetoric of billionaires are evil. I don't look at billionaires as evil, right? Because they expand from that billionaires are evil to people with money are somehow evil, and that's the class war, right? So you have the poor versus the middle class, instead of the poor and the middle class working together against the elites, right? When I look at billionaires, the problem I have with billionaires is not the money, not the wealth. It's because I know how things work in this country in terms of business. In order to get to that level of a billionaire, you got to be a savage, right? I don't see how you're going to become a billionaire without being a savage in this country. If our country was not the way it is right now, just so off the hinges with just like it's all about profit, 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 and what gets the clicks, and you know what I mean. Like it's all about just maximizing profit. If we weren't so obsessed with that, if we had a more fair, more balanced structure here from a business perspective, then I wouldn't automatically assume billionaires are I would say they're evil, but I wouldn't have this sort of so negative perception of billionaires. So again, it's not their wealth, it's just logically understanding how things are here, the way things are set up. It's just really not really feasible to get to that level without yourself being a savage, right? But what I see from American progressives is they take it to the next level where it's not just that logical sort of realization of what's going on. There's this thing where it's kind of anti-wealth, right? And that leads you to this eternal poverty. Let's talk about Medicare for all, right? Let's talk about free healthcare. Let's talk about increasing wages. Let's talk about having a home should be a right, right? These are all things that will be definitely very attractive to the people at the bottom, because the lower you are, the more you need, right? So if you're talking about adding all these different social programs, obviously the people at the bottom would benefit the most. Now the reality is, middle class, we all have struggles, right? You lose your job, something happens, medical bankruptcy, whatever it is. So even if you're middle class, these things can benefit you because you lose your job, you don't have the high income coming in. Then what do you have to fall back on, right? But the reality is, what I've identified is that the way that American progressives think, it's all about people at the bottom. We got to help people at the bottom, keep them out, keep them in homes. We've got to keep them off the streets. We've got to get the poverty down, right? But the minute that you get out of poverty, you get abandoned, right? One clear way to see this level of thinking is to listen to, like I listened to Mike Figueroa. He made a comment about a bunch of different things in the video today. And he says something about landlord throwing out people on the streets or something like that. And I was like, interesting how he framed it in that way. So the person lost their job and they couldn't afford to pay their rent. So of course they ended up getting evicted. But the way he's framing it is, what does he expect the landlord to do? Right? The thing that's missing is there's a gap in the thinking of the American progressive. It's understood. The right wing will just completely dismiss the stuff they're talking about. They just like let police over bootstraps, get government out of the way, let people do their thing, right? But the stuff that the American progressives talk about are good things, right? Because when you're struggling to pay your bills and you're struggling to keep a roof over your head and all that kind of stuff, that kind of traps you, right? How are you going to better yourself? How are you going to get yourself out of poverty if you're just struggling to survive, right? But here's the problem. They're just hyper focused on that part of the equation. But so it's like all these things put in place to allow you to be more comfortable so you can rise up above your situation, right? So you can get a better job, you don't have to struggle, you have a home, you're comfortable. And in that situation, that allows you to move up your status financially, right? So now you get out of being poor and get into being middle class. But that's the end of the road for you with American progressives. Once you're out of the poor, it's now you are evil. They basically class the middle class with billionaires, right? It's like you have the people at the very bottom and then you have everybody else, right? So you have some elderly couple, right, that spent 30, 40 years saving up all their money. They didn't make that much money, but they saved it up. And then because the retirement program that is available to them is kind of questionable, the long-term goal was they wanted to retire and purchase a multifamily home and rent it out, provide housing for people, right? And that was going to be how that was going to be like their retirement plan, right? This couple, and this is actually based on a real thing, a real story that happened. This couple, in retirement purchases a 3-family home, rents it out to people, and then their tenants stop paying the rent, right? Because, the Democrats come up with policies that allow them to get away with not paying the rent, right? And then people that watch someone like Mike Figueroa, they will look at that and, just the same level of savagery that you see from American conservatives when it comes to some of the, we talk about like healthcare or whatever, and it's just kind of like it's just like you get a lot of and I know a lot of this has come from right-wing media and not necessarily the people. Like it's right-wing media that's getting people these ideas, but it's kind of like just not really having sort of empathy for people who, you know, you falling on tough times. You know, you see the same level with progressives, right? So this couple who spent all this money, 4 decades, bought a home. And then you go to progressive, you say, listen, this couple's going to lose their home. Look at what, you know, the people aren't paying the rent. You know, this couple shouldn't be abandoned to where it's kind of like, oh, sucks to be you, right? This is the way that's to look at things with critical thinking and with empathy and not getting into these partisan bubbles, right? You don't focus just on the poor. You focus on the poor and the middle class. You set a path. It's just like with prisons, right? There's no sort of path to getting back into society. They put you in prison, and then you get out and you get back in, right? It's hard to find a job. It's like a revolving door. And that same mentality is how you have American progressive. You're poor. You have these systems in place to keep you comfortable. You use those systems of keeping comfortable to be able to better yourself. Then you get abandoned. Then when tough times come around, you fall right back down to the bottom. You rise up again. Tough times come, you get abandoned. Oh, at least you have a home, right? What about people who don't have a home, struggling to pay their rent, whatever, right? So it's a revolving door. There isn't a path of, okay, let's help the people at the very bottom, right? So they can rise up above being poor. And then let's continue that path. Let's also help the middle class as well, so they can rise as far as their, you know, their ambitions and you know, your desires. Like, you know, some people just want to be comfortable, want to live comfortable, that's fine. But if you want to go and you want to become, you know, upper middle class or whatever it is, like, let's create a pathway so that the most Americans can achieve as much as they want to. Let's not just focus on, oh, the poor, people should have homes, and then once you get above that, it's kind of like, screw you. And again, this is something that I've recognized from progressive rhetoric. I've noticed a pattern, and this is why I've come to this conclusion lately, that there's this level of thinking of just like help the poor, comfortably poor, and then you get beyond that, and it's kind of like whatever. I went in Mike Figueroa's comment section, and I commented about this to someone, and one of his followers basically confirmed exactly what I was thinking, right? I'm gonna read what hopefully I can read the comment. I don't know if I can. I don't think it's gonna allow me to read the comment, but the comment that he made basically was completely dismissive of, you know, any sort of idea of having any compassion for a homeowner. It's like, fuck the homeowner, right? You're like, oh, you're a little violent, and like we're supposed to worry about a homeowner. And it's kind of like, again, what is the point of helping people at the bottom if once they rise up above the bottom, you're gonna just abandon them? Like, that's just, again, the revolving door of poverty. Like, what? I don't get it. Like, what is the end goal? I mean, I know what the end goal is for the politicians, but these are Americans, regular, everyday Americans that are sharing these ideas. What is the point for the politicians? The point for the politicians is profitable to pretend to care about people and just focus on, oh, we got to get the people off the streets, and we got to deal with this homeless problem. And then you'd be able to say, oh, we got this amount of people off the street and whatever, even though the stuff you're doing in the long run may not actually make sense, right? Because, for example, if you have a bunch of homeowners that you're abandoning, right? They have their tenants that aren't paying rent, right? So then these homeowners are strained. They end up losing their homes. So now these homes get foreclosed on. Who do you think steps in to scoop up these homes? BlackRock. BlackRock steps in. You have more corporate landlords who push up the rent, who really don't care anything about these people. So now you have the poor are still poor. They're even more poor because there's less apartments, because nobody wants to rent to anyone, because they know that anything happens with their tenants not being able to pay, they're going to be abandoned and screwed. And American progressive will say, well, oh, at least you have a home, right? So it's like, fuck you, you have a home, you bastard, right? So people are going to be, regular people are going to be afraid to rent. That means less small landlords, a lot of homes foreclosed on, which is gonna crash the housing market. And again, who steps in? BlackRock steps in and buys up these homes, and now we all suffer together. Like, that's the end goal for American progressives, right? Let's all be poor, right? Let's help people stay at the bottom. They move up to the top. We bring them right back down because that's where they belong, at the very bottom, right? Again, we know the politicians are doing this because it is politically profitable for them to do this, because it looks, it's easy. The thing is, Americans love, things to be very sort of simple, right? We're very emotional people. So when you just talk about the poor, everybody understands. Like, anybody you talk to, you can say, hey, homeless people should be helped. Like, that's understandable. You can get people emotionally to be like, wow, these poor people are homeless. Like, they can get that. When you start talking about, oh, let's do some things for the middle class as well, it's kind of like, well, you know what I mean? Like, but they seem okay. So you have people that are middle class that are actually struggling as well. Okay, they're not struggling like the poor are, but they're also struggling, and they're very close to losing everything and joining the poor. Right? But that's a complicated, like, nuanced conversation. That's not something a politician wants to focus on. So we know why the politicians focus on the poor, again, because it's simple. It's explosions and sex, right? But it's very sad when we, the people, right, Americans, are pushing out this rhetoric, this class war rhetoric of, once you're not poor, you are a billionaire, right? It's you have the poor, and then you have billionaires, right? Oh, you have a 2-family home, you're a billionaire. You don't need any help, right? Let's fuck you, right? There's tons of things to be critical of Mike Figueroa, and admittedly, RBN has certainly done some very good critique of people like Mike Figueroa. But on their video today about, oh, what happened to him, Jimmy Dore, that's on some bullshit. Jimmy Dore is nothing but a fraud cult of personality. And I always find it interesting when I see YouTubers making videos where it's like, X is attacking X. Like, you never see me make a video like that. I'm never going to make a video saying, oh, such and such is attacking Jimmy, or such and such is attacking Mike Figueroa, or such and such is attacking Brian Tyler Cohen. I'm not going to fucking make a bullshit video because somebody's attacking somebody. Like if somebody's attacking Jimmy Dore, let Jimmy Dore defend himself. I don't need to do a video about it, right? But you see all of these, like, partisan YouTubers, they all do the same stuff. It's like you have the fake progressives, so let's say Jimmy Dore attacks Mike Figueroa. Then the fake progressive, Jimmy Dore is attacking Mike Figueroa because he said something about forced divorce, or whatever it is, right? It's all this like cult sort of what's the word? What'd you call it? It's all about these cliques, right? Literal clicks and figurative, in terms of the clicks on your videos, and also the clicks in terms of I am targeting a certain audience, right? I'm targeting people upset with the Democrats, right? That's all every day. Democrats suck, right? So if there's other creators that are also putting out the same kind of content, it is financially beneficial to me to be friendly with them, have alliances with them, and if they get attacked, it's financially beneficial to me to go and do a video saying, oh, such and such is attacking such and such, right? Because my audience is gonna love that, because they're attacking someone who also has the same rhetoric that I'm pushing as well. So for me to make a video and say, look at these ridiculous whatever, my audience is gonna be like, I'll get engagement, right? And that's the game that propagandists and partisan media, this is the game that they all play. CNN, MSNBC, the Young Turks, Brian Tyler Cohen, Tim Pool, Blaze TV, Ben Shapiro. This is what American partisan media is all about. It's all about the clicks. It's all about emotional appeals. It's all about, I'm going to pick a part of reality to focus on. I'm going to ignore the other part. And if you try to call me out for that, I'm going to say, oh, well, if you want to watch that stuff, there's lots of other stuff. But this is my beat. My beat is this half of reality. And I'm going to talk about how my competition is not talking about this part of reality. But don't try to call me out for not talking about the other part of reality, right? It's okay for me to talk about half of reality, but it's bad for them to talk about half of reality, right? I'm the good partisan. They're bad partisans, right? It's all bullshit. It's all about clicks. It's all about views. It's all about getting attention and engagement. It's all about business. That's what American media is all about. It's a business. It's about profit. It's not about educating anyone. It's not about informing anyone. It's all about the Benjamins. And that's just a fact of reality. Why can I say these things? Because I'm not here as a business, right? So I don't have to be loyal to one clique or the other clique, or I don't have to pretend that mainstream media that's the boogeyman. But independent media, I don't see what's happening in independent media. I don't see the fact that they're doing much worse than what mainstream media was doing, and they have a much larger audience, right? I'm gonna pretend to focus on legacy dying media as if they're the problem, right? They're dying. I'm gonna say, they're dying and nobody wants to watch their stuff. Meanwhile, let's keep talking about them and ignore the partisan independent media that takes whatever mainstream media was doing and just amplifies it times 10. Who else is going to say that on YouTube? Nobody that's serious about their channel, that's actually trying to run a business. They're not going to say that to you, right? That's something for you to think about. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate Me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. And I'm out! And I'm out. A lot of people are gonna be upset about this video, but not here to make friends, not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. Right? I'm here to tell you the uncomfortable truth, whether you want to hear it or not. Right? And that's why I'll always be a small channel, and I'm okay with it.